Hey YouTubers, it's Charlie. So they're doing the Superman thing again. Reportedly, there is a Man of Steel 2 movie in development, so I'm going to do an explanation for that. Whole bunch of Superman stuff happening this week between the movies and the TV shows. So here we go. So the big news is that there's a reported Man of Steel sequel, like a Superman solo film, that's actively being developed by Warner Brothers. So if you didn't know what that means is when they say they're actively developing something, it's like your parents telling you you're going to Disneyland and then you're like, well, are we going right now or are we going next week? And they say, we're going right now, get in the car. So active development versus passive just means they're devoting a lot of resources, a lot of human power to actually figuring out what the story's going to be and how it's going to fit in the new DC cinematic universe. Because if you were ever worried about them not doing a Superman sequel, don't worry about that. Superman and Batman are their two biggest characters. There will always be Superman and Batman films. But when they're not actively developing something, it just means that people keep pitching them ideas like, hey, I have an idea for the next Superman movie. And they're like, okay, put it on the pile, we'll revisit it later. So now Geoff Johns, the other executives that are responsible for making decisions about what movies get made, have just gotten up out of their seats and said, okay, everybody, let's high five and figure this out. So what will probably happen is you'll hear more about this new Superman movie when they get ready to release Wonder Woman. Because even though Suicide Squad is doing gangbusters at the box office, it's doing really, really well, there's going to be plenty more Suicide Squad movies. Public perception isn't the greatest. There's just a lot of people that weren't satisfied with the film, so they just want to make everybody as happy as possible when Wonder Woman comes out. So once that happens, expect them to start talking more about Superman. Because the good thing about Superman, if you're wondering what a new Superman movie might feel like, because they're kind of slowly altering the tone of the DC movies away from the really dark, depressing, gritty Zack Snyder deconstructionist view, the Wonder Woman movie is kind of like the first big course correction. Geoff Johns was a co-writer on it. The whole conceit of Wonder Woman is that the world is in chaos, the fandom is in chaos, and she is here to make everything okay again. So literally in the context of the movie and metaphorically in the context of the fandom, that's kind of the role that Wonder Woman is going to fill next spring. So I'm expecting any new Superman film to be closer to the tone of the Wonder Woman movie. So now you're all saying, who's going to be writing it? Who's going to be directing it? Well, I'll say right off the bat, probably not Zack Snyder, but the person that they actually choose to make the movie will depend a lot on the type of Superman story they want to tell. And the funny thing is, most comic book writers say Superman is the least fun character to write. He's just so overpowered that it's really hard to have a villain that can match him. You do Lex Luthor once, you can't do Lex Luthor every single time. He's a great villain for Superman, but we just did him in Batman v Superman. So there are only a few other slam dunk villains that you could do. Brainiac is an amazing Superman villain. The new Krypton Brainiac arc from the comics would be a really great story. Brainiac emerges, Superman is one of the only people that can help defeat him. So we already know we have Justice League, so we have Darkseid, the New Gods. That's going to be a Justice League level problem, but the Superman solo film will have to be a different antagonist that Superman can face and defeat alone, with maybe a little bit of help from the other Justice League characters. Because so spoilers for Suicide Squad, I'm going to talk about spoilers from that movie because there was some crossover. So here we go. So Batman and the Flash appeared in the Suicide Squad movie in really small ways, but it was really interesting. So expect that same type of treatment in the other DC movies. You'll see people pop up in other people's movies. So because it's probably going to be a couple years before we actually see this next Superman film, we'll have already met a bunch of other Justice League characters, so there are a number of different people that could cameo in his film. But for the most part, it's going to be a challenge for the Superman character to face alone. So it's just really hard for them to tell an awesome Superman story where he either doesn't die at the end. All-Star Superman by Grant Morrison is one of the greatest Superman stories of all time, but he dies at the end of that story. You can't kill Superman in every single one of his movies. So there are just way less Superman villains that are, very easy for them to do in a cinematic way that would play really well in a movie, as opposed to Batman, who has a ton of awesome villains that they could bring into the movie. So that's one of the reasons why it's so much easier for people to write good Batman stories than it is for them to write good Superman stories. And I always feel in the back of my mind, people are more interested in trying to see man trying to become God, which is kind of what Batman represents. He's kind of like the god of revenge. Superman is more like the story of a god trying to be a man, and Zack Snyder really elevated him to that level in Batman v Superman. Everybody kept talking about him like he was a god. Even in Suicide Squad, they talk about him as if he was a god who's fallen. So I'll be really interested to see in how they weave him into the new DC universe, like a new Superman story, because it'll probably be a combination of a couple comic book arcs, but I think that Brainiac would probably be the slam dunk villain of that movie. So let me know in the comments, what kind of Superman story do you want them to do for the Man of Steel sequel? And remember, because Steppenwolf is going to be the villain of the Justice League film, the New Gods do exist. So you could use some of the New Gods for a Superman solo story, but you can't really stuff too many New Gods into a Superman solo story without it turning into a Justice League story. And I think they want the next Superman film to feel like a Superman film and not like a Superman film with the entire Justice League in it. But for those of you wondering when Warner Brothers is actually going to start talking about the Man of Steel sequel publicly, I would expect when the Wonder Woman movie comes out, and then when Comic-Con comes next year, for them to have some sort of presentation saying, hey, this is when the Superman movie is coming, here's just a quick look at the stuff that we're working on. But I do feel like Aquaman would work really well in a Superman movie because this version of Aquaman is almost as powerful as Superman, just as long as he's close to water. But I do feel like Jason Momoa, just like his persona, his Aquaman persona, would play really well with Henry Cavill's version of Superman. Then, they just have a lot of charisma together. When Aquaman bites you, it's his way of saying that he likes you. I can't wait to see Jason Momoa interact with the other Justice League characters too. It's going to be so fun. But giveaway time though, congratulations to this week's giveaway winner, Brian Murray. You won a $20 Amazon gift card. Be sure to private message me on the back end of my channel so I can get your contact details. So if you didn't see my Flash Supergirl Fortnite TV crossover video that I posted yesterday, I talk about like the big panel that they're having for the TV shows this week that's coming Thursday. So there'll be plenty more TV DC stuff happening, but there'll be some more Marvel stuff. There's a new Luke Cage trailer that's going to drop tomorrow, so I'll be doing videos for all that stuff. Be sure to subscribe to get it. So don't forget, Sweet Christmas coming tomorrow. While you guys wait for my next video to post, you can click here to learn all about the big Fortnite TV crossover, and you can click here for my Justice League trailer. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. Let's high five. I'll see you guys tonight.